Good Tuesday afternoon to you. It's 4 o'clock and time for Sports for CLE. Thanks for joining us. Hope your Tuesday is off to a great start. Well, today is the Major League Baseball trade deadline. Still a couple of hours to go. No news with the Guardians since that Aaron Savali trade yesterday. But we will continue to monitor that in the event the Guardians do make a move. 6 o'clock is the trade deadline time today for Major League Baseball. Today, also the first day that the Browns have training camp in Berea with fans out there watching. Browns got back onto the field, and a good sign. Deshaun Watson finding Amari Cooper in 11-on-11 drills. Here's another good sign. Sione Takitaki coming off that ACL injury looks to be moving pretty well. Running backs catching the football and then some pass protection drills as well with Felton and Ford working on that. Also some news. Tristan Hill working off to the side. Left hand appeared to be in a cast, so another banged up defensive tackle. Mike Ford, special teams ace cornerback, banged up, went down with a leg injury during a non-contact kickoff drill, hobbled off and being evaluated as we speak. So the Browns getting ready for the Hall of Fame game. That will be Thursday down in Canton, Pro Football Hall of Fame. Kevin Stefanski talked about today's practice as well as getting ready for that first preseason game Thursday.
Got some no huddle plan, got some 2-minute planned, really working some different situations. The bulk of the reps will go to our starters in this practice as we ease back on the players that will be playing in this game. Speaking of the game, Kellen Mond will start. Dorian will play the second half. And then I'll get the rest of the list to you later, but because I haven't shared it with the rest of the players, so I can't go position by position, but it'll really be backups. But there'll be some players that have played a lot for us playing in this game because it's a great opportunity. We get to play in this game. That's our mentality.
With that, let's welcome in Jeff Lloyd, Locked On Browns podcast. And Jeff, you have that fourth preseason game, and all the teams use it to get a look at the guys that you have to evaluate to make the squad. You know who your starters are going to be by and large for the Browns. It's the guys that are fighting for the backup spots and those third spots.
We have a couple of interesting things here because you have, you look at the linebacker position and maybe even the cornerback position. Obviously, Mike Ford went down today with an injury. Jordan Kunizak has looked good at the linebacker position. You have guys that are here in the cornerback room and the linebacker room specifically with the thought of being special teams players. But they're going to have battles with guys who are trying to make that team within the linebacker room, within the cornerback room. Those are things you're certainly going to look at. The wide receiver room with Marquise Goodwin out, and we don't know how long, and, blood clots, there is some seriousness to it. So with him missing the time he is, there is a possibility of a door being open for a wide receiver week 1, week 2, till Goodwin maybe is ready to contribute to this team. Mond, I think, kind of throwing him a bone. Kellen Mond has been here for however long. We've never seen him take a live snap, not even a preseason snap. So he'll get an opportunity. And looking at Dorian, Thompson Robinson, this is going to be exciting because I think this is by far easily going to be the Browns' number 2 quarterback of the future. And the question is, could he, press the level maybe to get there this year? Granted, nobody wants to see the number 2 quarterback play, but DTR certainly has the ability to one day be this team's number 2. And when you're looking at a backup quarterback, you kind of want to say, do we have something similar to our number 1 quarterback? And I think for Dorian Thompson-Robinson, that would be the case. He's got a lot of similarities in so far as play style to what Deshaun Watson can bring.
So it'll be interesting to see. You may see some of the formations that will be added to the playbook. You may get some clues as to how the Browns' offense will look with Thompson-Robinson in there as you watch that in the first preseason game. Well, first preseason game means Browns also released their first unofficial depth chart. Take a look at the defense. This is the side of the ball that's kind of interesting. So as is the case, the rookies are the guys that are underlined, and they're not going to be anywhere near where they would be anyway on the depth chart. But when you look at the defensive tackle position, Tomlinson, Elliott, Hill, who is off to the side, Togiai, Hurst, the rookie Ika. Now, in fairness, they've said Wright can kick in, Smith can kick in, Isaiah Thomas can kick in. That concerns me, the depth of the defensive tackle position concerns me. When you look at it, what are your thoughts and maybe some other concerns that you may have?
Well, defensive tackle. I mean, the thing is, it's great that you went out and you got Dalvin Tomlinson, but it's basically you've got a surefire, competent, very good starter, and then you still don't know what you have in anything else. Look, Jordan Elliott is here for. We still don't know what we have in Jordan Elliott. Hurst, you think he can contribute if he can find, the health that he's never had within this league, but it's a glaring hole. It's been a glaring hole for a long time. And you look at a couple of the other positions on the defensive side of the ball. You look at safety, and now last year the Browns didn't get great safety play. So Juan Thornhill was a point of emphasis right out of the bat in free agency. Went to the draft, and you said, you know what, we're still not there. So you know what, we added yet another veteran, and you went out, and of course you got Rodney McLeod. You look at defensive ends. They made the move in free agency for Okoronkwo. Then they added Isaiah McGuire during the draft, and then still said, you know what, we're still not confident, and added yet another veteran defensive end. So that's 2 at the safety position, 2 at the defensive end position. Tomlinson was a great addition, but they really need a way to find to get one more veteran into that room. It was the weakest group of the 3 groups I'm just discussing here. So you look at that defensive tackle room, you really got to think they're hard pressed to try to get a guy either like Shelby Harris or maybe a Matt Ioannidis, a guy like that in here. Harris can contribute, can be a player for this team. Problem is if Denver's interested, he had the best 5 years of his career with the Denver Broncos. Seattle is where he was last year. They still have some interest. So, this may be one where the Browns maybe going to have to go a little bit out of their comfort zone as far as salary if they want to get it done. But there is no mistaking it. The Browns somehow, some way got to get another veteran defensive tackle in here because you cannot expect 3-4 guys to all of a sudden find a better playing level than they ever have in their time in the NFL.
As you mentioned, Shelby Harris was in yesterday for a visit. He visited with the Broncos earlier in the week. In listening to Sean Payton, head coach of the Broncos, doesn't sound like there's anything imminent there. Why do you think he would be the guy, and I know you've addressed it in the Locked On Browns podcast, why do you think he's a guy that they should seriously consider, going a little above their comfort zone for?
Just brings versatility. He's just not a run stopper. I mean, this is a guy who's had 2 6-sack seasons. He's had a 5.5-sack season. And look, I mean, you're going to get to the quarterback faster by having a solid pass rush from the interior than you are certainly from the outside or certainly even a wide 9. He's a guy who's contributing. He's paid his dues in the league. First couple of years didn't go very well. 2016 wasn't really even in the league at all. Then got to Denver on what was a futures contract and just kind of found his way. Hardworking guy, a little bit undersized at 6'2", 290, but really, really knows how to use his hands well. Really, really pushes the gaps well to be able to get in and be able to create some havoc for the opposing quarterback. It just seems like a really, really easy one. You think the dream scenario as the season goes on would be Tomlinson and Ika doing the dirty work on first down. Then maybe you're only probably going to keep one defensive tackle on the field. They're a nickel and dime situation, so you want to give Tomlinson obviously some pass rush opportunities, but you don't want to gas him out because 1st and 10 is going to be utmost important, obviously. So you can put in a Shelby Harris, then maybe play 3 edges because, like you said, Alex Wright's big enough to kick inside. So Darius Smith is certainly able to do that. There's going to be weeks where you feel you get some weak interior players, so you can even bring Miles inside and just kind of let him feast there as well. It just seems like it's a really, really good fit for this team, a really, really good matchup that could work for them. Hopefully they can find a way to get, pen to paper here and, get Shelby Harris done with and done quickly.
So the Browns did sign a guy yesterday afternoon, made it official today. They signed a 2-time USFL champion cornerback, Lorenzo Burns. Burns has been on the practice squad of a couple NFL teams. Listen, Jeff, the Browns have been really good at identifying cornerbacks. Look at Martin Emerson in the 3rd round a year ago. They took Cam Mitchell in the 5th or 6th round this year out of Northwestern. This might be a practice squad guy that they see they can develop.
I think this is more of a case of we're hopefully not going to play Denzel Ward or Greg Newsome or Martin Emerson much. We're not going to play much in the preseason. And, honestly, with the 3 guys they have at the position, why would you if you think they're ready to go? And look, all 3 of them have been strong to this point. So, you still got to find a way to have 4 or 5 corners to be able to go in these preseason games. Still maybe these guys get their feet wet maybe in the last one, the second to last one, and maybe a little bit more in the last one. So I think it's just about having bodies in here. And, certainly with Mike Ford going down today, Burns is probably going to be a guy that's going to play Thursday night, probably play a good amount. God knows he doesn't even know much of the playbook at this point. But, you need some bodies there because you're not just going to play the good guys because maybe you have some injuries. That'd just be foolish and reckless. So there just needs more people in there. And, obviously you need guys to go out and cover kicks and things like that. Where his future lies, it's kind of hard to know because, the guy basically signed a contract and went to practice today. But I think the Browns are probably, most likely are just trying to protect their top three. They know it's a great group. They don't want to, have to start that carousel of who's in, who's out early in the season, hopefully, or at all. So I think it's more about just making sure these guys are getting the practice reps. And unlike years past, these guys are getting really good practice reps because the wide receiver room is so improved. These guys are getting the reps they need without having to participate in preseason games.
Jim Schwartz met with the media earlier today, talked about this defense dealing with some quality AFC North opponents' offenses early in the year and the challenges that presents.
We see so many different things in our division that, we do have to cover a lot of ground in training camp. But, if you ask these guys, about the first three opponents today, I would hope that they wouldn't know any of the three because they're just worried about practice today and, the emphasis of practice and competing and their technique. And if we do a good job of that on a daily basis, then we'll be ready for those first three opponents. If we're here August 1st? Yeah, if we're here August 1st and we're thinking about week 3, we're in the wrong business and we're not going to make any ground. So I like where the guys are, come out on a daily basis and work. But your point is we do have a lot of stuff, not just in the first 3 games, but there's a lot of things that are going to come up over the course of the year, a lot of different styles of offense, a lot of different things that, when we play, a middle of the season game and there's something that we put in the game plan, hopefully it's not the first time we've executed it.
And Jeff, it makes sense, but the way the Browns have started the last couple of years, minus that win against Carolina, you got to be concerned about the beginning of the season.
Well, and you got to keep in mind they're coming at this, and look, the Browns know what the Bengals do, but it's a brand new defense, it's a brand new system, it's a brand new coordinator, it's a lot of new talent. As much, and Jim can joke around and say this isn't on the players' minds. I think we all know differently. They know exactly what is coming, and when it is coming. It's hard not to peek over. Pittsburgh, we're not really sure. Does Kenny Pickett take the next step? Tennessee, heck, we don't even know who the quarterback's going to be for the Tennessee Titans, obviously. It's just about going through and getting the work you need. And I think most of what Jim Schwartz was saying there is if we get done now what we need to get done now, it's not going to matter who we play and when we play. It's just trying to make sure that he feels that his defense is working at, if his goal is a 70% install or an 80% install by the time week 1 comes around. He just wants to make sure that he's not giving them all too much too fast and that the guys are absorbing it as it comes. And then, obviously, when you get into the regular season, that's when you're going to have to start to change a little bit, start to, reinvent yourself a little bit. Okay, well, this doesn't work. Okay, well, let's try this instead. And just, and I think he's done a great job with this. He's just trying to not bog anybody down. And he said this from Jump Street. He's got a lot of confidence in the ability of these players, and he doesn't want to cloud their judgment. He wants them to just go out and play to the best of their ability, which means see the guy in front of you, react to the guy in front of you, and go be the ball player you've always been.
Jeff Lloyd from the Locked On Browns podcast and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, we'll hear more from Jim Schwartz. Where's the defense at right now? As well as head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. Sports for CLE. We'll be right back. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine. We continue talking Browns with Jeff Lloyd from the Locked On Browns podcast. Let's head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
The more I really think about it, the more I really question, I understand we want to give props to the Ravens, the Steelers, and the Bengals, but if we really genuinely think about it, we can really win this division. We have one of the best rosters, one of the best coaching staff in this division. I'll be shocked if we didn't win the division, but like I feel like we can win the division. Like, legitimately win this division. But, like, it's just like we can't let stupid stuff get in the way. So I think that we can win the division.
As always, appreciate all of the voicemails. Jeff, 89, I think, is the last time they've won the division. So that's why Browns fans are trying to talk themselves into it. But this roster is better than it's been, probably since the mid to late 80s.
There's no question about it. I mean, you got one of the top offensive lines in the game. You've got a great wide receiver room. You've got a great tight end. You've got one of the best running backs in the NFL, in my opinion, the best running back in the NFL. You've got a quarterback, whatever you think about him off of the field, is one of the most individually talented quarterbacks in the NFL. You are 3 deep at defensive end. You are 3 deep at cornerback. You are 3 deep at safety. You get a little more help at defensive tackle. This team is always matched up well against the Cincinnati Bengals. Baltimore Ravens, we don't know exactly what the Ravens are even going to look like yet. Obviously there's a new offense going in. The premise is for Lamar Jackson to be more of a passer. So with the contract extension they've given him, the threat of injury with him, and all the running he did early in his career, hopefully trying to, basically evolve away from that and just having him throw the ball more. And Pittsburgh Steelers, they're an improved team, but it's all going to come down to their quarterback. So there's a lot, there's a lot with all of this right now. But you're just trying to, get it all ready, get it all into gear. But yeah, I mean, if you ask me right now today, if I had to pick one of 4 teams who I think is going to win the AFC North, I think it's the Cleveland Browns. I don't work in this factor of, oh, well, it's always never worked out before. Well, no, that's not what analysis is. That's not how analysis works. So you look at something the way it currently is, and what do you think it is? And for me, yeah, I think this team is loaded, and I think they have a big advantage for themselves that they match up as well as they do against what is now the top dog in the AFC North, the Cincinnati Bengals.
The other thing is, Jim Schwartz was asked again today, just where this defense stands right now as you get into the nuts and bolts of training camp.
Way to practice that, and that's full speed. So, we're still a work in progress. We're making progress, but it's something that doesn't happen overnight. We've had very limited opportunities in full pads, by plan. Yeah. But particularly for the young guys, Thursday will be a big step for them. We'll keep it simple for those guys, and we can see where they are right now. But we're only a couple weeks in. We'll use the whole training camp to be ready for the opener.
So the beginning part of that, he said we're not where we need to be, which you wouldn't expect them to be.
No, and like I said, he's not trying to put too much in, because the thing is, as much as he is new here, he has a bunch of new talent here as well. So you've got to maybe do, drill work a little longer. You got to do something simple like pursuit angles a little longer. You have to make sure that these guys are starting to get comfortable with each other, because until the players know each other and you're comfortable with what each other's tendencies are, okay, well, I know the way he covers a slant, so that's where he's going. And it's all stuff that you just got to factor, and the only way you can do it is through repetition. So you have to do it slow, because until the guys truly understand each other that they're working with and competing with each and every rep, it's really hard to bog down the mind, because you already have a ton to think about anyway. JOK sitting there with now Tristan Hill in front of him, Maurice Hurst in front of him, Ika in front of him, Dalvin Tomlinson in front of him. Okay, well, can he do this? Is he going to be able to seal off? So there is no, I'm going to be running clean. I'm going to be able to go sideline to sideline without interruption. And it takes a while. It's, offense, it's not really that much of a difference. You're learning the way a quarterback throws the ball. You're learning his spin rate. You're learning, where he throws it, whether it's low, whether it's high, on out routes, things like that. But defense, it's truly the, complete synopsis of what, team sports is. And for the defense, it's 11 acting as one. Because even if one guy doesn't do their job, it can throw off the entire defense. So it's, it takes time, like Coach said. And he's no fool. This is now what? This is about to be 5 now defenses in probably the last 12, 13 years. He knows exactly what he's doing, and he's not going to push these guys. And it probably, as much as it is, oh, God, the Bengals week 1, it probably is pretty good that they can say, oh, it's the Bengals, and we have a pretty good idea about how they do things.
So this is from Pro Football Focus. Biggest kryptonite for all of the AFC starting quarterbacks in 2023. For Deshaun Watson, creating sacks. Over his career, 21% of the pressures turn into sacks. That's double the best figures in the league. Averages 3.6 seconds per pass. Was also charged by PFF with being responsible for a league-high 18 sacks in 2020, 17 the year before, 14 the year before that. Now, I would say the Browns' offensive line is a whole lot better than the Texans, but there is the fact that he holds on to the ball, and he'll take some sacks, but he'll also make some big plays. This also illustrates Browns' line and the wide receivers need to get used to a guy that looks to extend plays.
It's a really, really difficult thing as a quarterback to say, all right, well, I'm just going to throw the ball to the sidelines here because it's not here. It takes the competitive spirit out of you. And if you go deeper into those numbers, you want to see when those sacks are. If it's on third down, look, he's trying to do everything he can to extend the play, to extend the drive. One of the problems Deshaun has is early in the down sequence is sometimes trying to play, I don't want to call it hero ball, but trying to extend it. Look, if it's 1st and 10 and you realize there's two guys coming for you and there's no, man, that's the one you throw away. Come back at 2nd and 10 because you certainly don't want to come back at 2nd and 18. I'll live with sacks on third down because you're doing anything you can to extend the drive. It's just being a little bit smarter in the fact of saying, hey, 2nd and 10 is better than 2nd and 19 because there really is no play for 2nd and 19 anyway. And that's where Deshaun, and look, I know people brought it up last year. It wasn't fair. His timing wasn't there. It was the first time basically seeing live bullets in 20-something months. But that's something you're going to look for. Is be a little bit more crisper. If they're calling passing plays on first down, still try to keep obviously the offense in manageable situations. And even if it's a 1-yard gain, guess what? 2nd and 9 is a heck of a lot better than 2nd and 19.
Jeff Lloyd from the Locked On Browns podcast, and I'm going to step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, Bucky Brooks, NFL analyst, on what he thinks the Browns can do this year. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns with Jeff Lloyd from the Locked On Browns podcast. Bucky Brooks on what he sees in the 2023 Browns. This is from NFL Network's NFL Total Access.
To me, on paper, they're right there with the Cincinnati Bengals. They're neck and neck. There's a part of me that believes the Cleveland Browns will win the division, and it's going to be very impressive. It's not only what we talked about offensively, because I can talk about the firepower, Amari Cooper and a lot more, David Njoku, Nick Chubb, and those guys. But defensively is where they've made the biggest improvement. Jim Schwartz comes over, gives them a Super Bowl winning defensive coordinator. You have Zadarius Smith and Myles Garrett, who might be the best 1-2 punch as edge rushers in the National Football League. And with Schwartz being able to tie that in with a wide nine front, a defensive backfield that really specializes in playing man-to-man, this could be problematic for a lot of teams in the AFC. And so, I'm really excited about the Browns. And when we talk about the uniform deal, the all-white, the drip, man, when you have the drip to go with the talent and the stuff that the Browns have going on, I'm really excited about what they have going on in the Dawg Pound.
Jeff, it's kind of interesting. The guys that have played that are national analysts, the closer the season gets, the more you're starting to hear positive things about the Browns and Deshaun Watson and the defense.
Well, first things first, Bucky Brooks, as great as the compliment as you gave, the Browns roster is better. It's a better roster. Yes, Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, it's an unbelievable group of talent that can throw the football around to each other. But the Browns roster is better. Offensive line is better. Secondary is better. But yes, and I think this is where now that, and we always go through this difficult part of the year where, content matters and you still have to appease the people you're working for. You have to appease your sponsors, and you've got to put out content that draws eyes. But nothing's changed, in my opinion. This franchise looks to be as good as it's maybe ever been. And I understand there's that, well, it doesn't work out for Cleveland. And, we've heard this before. But you can't, as a fan, you can do that. As far as analysts, you can't. When this team, had John Dorsey as a general manager, I didn't feel the vision that I feel now, because there were moves that were made that either A, made no sense, or why did you take a chance on this guy? God's sakes, he got thrown out of college, these types of things. Now the moves they make, they're calculated, and you see the thought process that goes into it, and they just go more thorough with what they do. This roster is really, really good. You got a guy like Dalen Baldwin right now who is lighting up training camp. There's not a prayer right now that Dalen Baldwin has a chance to make the final 53 for week 1 against Cincinnati. But the guy is catching everything in training camp. This roster is deep. It's loaded. It's a good football team. And as long as Deshaun Watson returns to maybe even 2/3 of what Deshaun Watson was, this team really has a solid chance and most likely should win the AFC North.
So offensive coordinator Alex Van Pelt and Kevin Stefanski talked about what they have seen from Deshaun Watson so far in training camp.
Drills that he stays out late. I think there was maybe 1 or 2 guys left on the field the other day. That's really the guys that are great, or the guys that are motivated to work until they've finished the day, and his day didn't finish when practice was over. So you want your leaders to set that example and work extra hard, especially at that position.
Yeah, Deshaun's done a nice job, as we've talked about. Has come back really into training camp, certainly ready to go. Spent a lot of time over his break with our players, getting his mind ready for this opportunity. So he's done a great job.
Jeff, who won't say it, but I'm sure he's seen some of the questions does he still have it? And a guy like Watson is motivated by that.
Well, it's also, part of, there had to be a time where Deshaun Watson was thinking to himself, am I ever going to get back to play? With all that was going on and, all that was alleged against him, who knows what exactly, he truly felt is, am I ever going to get to do this again? And, this is, nothing else in my life am I, better at than playing quarterback in the league. And I think now, and, for him understanding that, he's able to go, he's able to play, knowing all of that, then you're bringing in the talent that you're making the roster better everywhere. And, there is that obligation. They gave me this money. They guaranteed this money. They believed in me more than the franchise that I left, for God's sakes. So you've got to feel like, I owe some people here. The Browns took a chance on me when, they had no idea when I was ever going to take the field again. So, there's got to be a lot that drives him, and then there's there is the fact that, the NFL right now is loaded at the quarterback position. And I'm sure Deshaun sees these lists just like we all do and says, well, he's better than me? Y'all think he's better? There's people who honestly think Daniel Jones from the New York Giants is a better quarterback than Deshaun Watson. Come on. And you want to know what? Keep writing the pieces, because all we see is Deshaun, and now that he's in camp, but where was it? Showing up at Miami, beaches in, and obviously Caribbean islands, just doing everything he could to get ready. There's not a chance in hell he'll ever win the Comeback Player of the Year award, but you got to think there's a really, really good chance if that award was not basically slanted, that this would be a walk away win for him.
So this is from Touchdown Wire, NFL's best interior offensive lineman. So that takes into account the center and the guards. Jason Kelce, number 1 from the Eagles. Joel Bitonio, guard from the Browns, number 2 last season. As Cleveland's quarterback situation morphed from Brissett to Watson, Bitonio was on point for all of it, allowing 1 sack, 6 QB hits, 13 hurries in 667 pass blocking snaps. 12th is Wyatt Teller. Teller dealt with injuries throughout 2022. That's why his tape metrics didn't quite match up to his 2021 season. And Posic's got to be considered up there as well, because he had a really good year as a center. With a mobile quarterback, If you get the interior of that line to block, good luck to the guards chasing down somebody that's as athletic as Deshaun Watson, pressuring him.
Well, I mean, it's twofold, and it's so integral to the running game, which is going to change a little bit. Obviously, the zone's going to be a little bit more inside this year. And, it certainly helps when you have a guy like Joel, and we're going to get to these conversations probably soon enough for Joel, where his ultimate landing spot is going to be in the NFL, because I don't believe he's that much, that far behind Joe Thomas as far as maybe making a trip down to Canton himself. But it is also just the glue of this team. And, they do what they're supposed to do. It gives Deshaun Watson the opportunity to step up in the pocket or step up inside of the outside rush and find running lanes. And, obviously everything it does for Nick Chubb. Nick doesn't talk much, but I'm sure Nick would pick up, whatever tab that these guys wanted to have for dinner. They're just a really, really great group. And, even when we talk about Posick, it's just the irony of it. He was a guy that signed last year. We were all highly anticipating, all right, Nick Harris, it's your time. You paid your dues. You were basically the starting center every day in practice, except then game days, it was J.C. Treader's job. And then all of a sudden it was gone in a blink of an eye. And here was Ethan Posick. And all of a sudden just went out and put out the best season of his NFL career. And the Browns were wise enough to make sure that he came back. And it starts on the interior, obviously, as it is. And, they're just stout. It's a really, really fun group. We'll see how it works here. One day Joel is going to eventually retire. And, does the torch get passed? Does, Wyatt become the guy who runs this offensive line, basically? It's just a really fun group. They really, really play hard. They just go out and do what they, do so well. And, even with the Browns shifting more to a passing game, there was the line that we always said is we got to run every now and then because, we got to reward the offensive lineman for pass blocking so well. So get them on the move and let them go, annihilate a 200-pound cornerback.
Jeff Lloyd and I are going to step aside, take one more time out, other side of the break. Kevin Stefanski and Jim Schwartz talk about the style of defense they want to play. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students, kindergarten through 12th grade, can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery, Partners in Education, where stars shine. We continue talking Browns with Jeff Lloyd from the Locked On Browns podcast. Today, Jim Schwartz, Kevin Stefanski talked about what they want to see from the defense style-wise.
We're going to try to lead the league, passion for the game and things like that. And that doesn't just happen on Sunday. You got to practice it. And, I think the guys have responded well to that message.
Very important. And I mean, that's what our defense is built on. And I think Jim, as you guys have seen and as you've probably heard, he makes sure the players know where they stand in that given moment, in that given practice. So he's demanding of it. And just the style in which we play defense here with Coach Schwartz, that is how we operate. It's how we get off the ball. It's how we attack the ball. So the defensive staff has done an outstanding job so far.
Kevin, when you go over the game plan for Thursday, do you particularly use a certain set of plays, or is it just more to give these guys reps?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing is you want your players to play fast. You want them to give a great accounting of themselves, and you don't want to slow them down with a lot of scheme. I know Coach Saleh has a very similar approach to this, so it'll be a great opportunity to challenge our guys, but you don't want to bog them down by scheme. You want them to be able to play fast.
And, Jeff, we've heard that consistently. The other thing, it's an interesting message. He's basically saying control what you can control, play all out. That's kind of the message to his defense. We want to lead the league in playing as hard as we can.
Well, and it gets back to the keeping it simple thing as well. And, use a phrase like paralysis by analysis. You don't want somebody, a linebacker or cornerback, going through 7 scenarios, in pre-snap. No, I know where I'm supposed to be lined up. Okay, I've got the sideline here. I've got this receiver. The sideline is basically my extra help. And just, okay, ball snap, receiver goes, I react. And the point is if you can find a way to build a really, really good roster, you don't need a magician. You don't need Bill Belichick to be your coach, because most of the time, the Johnnies and the Billies are going to beat the X's and the O's. It's just the way it goes. If it's good talent, as long as you coach it upright and you emphasize talent, technique, and of course, heart, and doing everything the same way every single time, it should beat scheme every single time.
All right, so this is a question that Browns.com had on their mailbag. How do you think the Browns linebackers improve under the schemes of Jim Schwartz?
Well, this is a little bit twofold. Obviously, first and foremost, you need improved defensive tackle play, because you just can't have guards just going 5-6 yards down the field against linebackers on running defense. It's just not going to work. The guards, the centers are going to win every single time. The other thing is it's going to be less linebackers, and it's been less linebackers. Everybody, the Browns don't pay linebackers. Well, no, because ideally the Browns' plan is to not play them a lot. Yes, you'll have a 4-3 base defense. But I do believe the Browns weren't, just saying, hey, let's sign Rodney McLeod just in case. They want to have 3 safety looks. They have 3 cornerbacks that they love. They want to have 3 cornerbacks looks. So, it's going to be just what they can do. Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, this is the key to it all, honestly. Sione Takitaki, we know he's basically here because he wanted to stay in a comfortable spot, go through his rehab, and, didn't want all this newness while going through a rehab. So we'll see what we can get from Sione Takitaki. Anthony Walker is kind of in this weird spot where he was with the Indianapolis Colts, where it was passing the torch to Darius Leonard. Now it's basically passing the torch to hopefully Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. The linebackers, look, everybody, and I think it probably has something to do with how old you are, and me certainly older. It's taken me a long time to understand that linebackers are kind of getting phased out of the game. There's very few, the Roquan Smiths of the world, who can compete every single down as a guy who can contribute in run defense, as a guy who can contribute in coverage, whether it's zone or it's man. And those guys are worth every penny they're getting. But it's kind of a position that's really, really in this odd spot overall in the NFL, because, if you're winning a lot, you're basically playing nickel and dime 75, 80, 85% of the time, which starts to eliminate your linebacker play anyway.
All right, before I let you go, this is from the Bleacher Report. 5 NFL teams most likely to disappoint in 2023. They had the Ravens, number 1, the Bills, number 2, the Browns, 3, Saints, 4, Jets, 5. So in order to disappoint, you have to have some expectations. The Browns, this one's kind of interesting. 2023 win projection 9.5, and their rationale. Unfortunately, Watson's top receivers aren't as talented as the ones he worked with in Houston. An aging Amari Cooper and an inconsistent Elijah Moore simply aren't on the same level as an in his prime DeAndre Hopkins and a healthy Will Fuller. Now, I looked this up because healthy and Will Fuller I didn't think should be used in the same sentence. He played 14, 10, 7, 11, 11, and 2 games in his 6 seasons. He missed 41 games. He never had a healthy Will Fuller. Will Fuller didn't play he's never healthy. So, okay, if you want to say, Elijah Moore is inconsistent, that's fair. Amari Cooper has been productive every season he's been in the NFL.
And in 3 different stops in the NFL. And with a player like Jacoby Brissett and with a player like Deshaun Watson. But basically then you're saying that the Bengals are going to run away with the AFC North? Because basically that's what you're saying, that if the Ravens are going to disappoint and the Browns are going to disappoint. Look, I just don't see it. I don't. And the weird thing about it is these are almost all AFC teams. And everybody talks about the strength of the AFC and how good they are. But, look, sometimes when you're putting out content, maybe sometimes you got to zag while other people are zigging, or vice versa, or whatever. And look, it is August 1st, but my good Lord, if I could hit the fast forward button to week 1 so we can just start to put all of this to bed. And for the Browns, it's not going to change. Nobody's going to, if anybody's not on board yet, you're not going to see anything in preseason that's going to change your mind. And that's fine. I'll sit right here and say, do I think the Browns are going to win the AFC North? Yeah, I think the Browns are going to win the AFC North. They're going to start strong. And that's why the hire of Jim Schwartz was important as it was, because Jim Schwartz is going to be intelligent enough to understand just how meaty the beginning of this schedule is. And it is somewhat advantageous to the Browns, because as Baltimore tries to find who they are in this new offense, you'd rather face them early. Kenny Pickett week 2, Kenny Pickett week 13 might be a lot tougher than Kenny Pickett week 2. So it maybe doesn't hurt the Browns as bad that they have all this newness on defense to start this season.
Jeff Lloyd, as always, appreciate the time and the insight. Good stuff, Jeff. Thanks very much.
All the best, Dave. Everybody enjoy yourselves, and I guess we'll see everybody Thursday night, right?
Sounds good. Jeff Lloyd, check him out. Locked On Browns podcast. Always really good Browns content and analysis. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. Casey Kinnamon from Dog Pound Daily straight ahead. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students, kindergarten through 12th grade, can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
I am powerful beyond my wildest imagination.
I will define my future.
I will keep challenging myself to improve.
Because I am a future leader of this great nation.
I will be responsible for raising a beautiful family.
And educating not only my generation, but many more to come.
I will make a difference in my community.
And I will stand up for what I believe in.
I will not settle for simply chasing my dreams. I will achieve them.
Because I was given a chance.
An opportunity.
A home.
At Family, Career, and Community Leaders of America.
The ultimate leadership experience.
FCCLA has been one of the greatest experiences of my life.
It's made me who I am today.
Join us. We'll build a new future together.
We continue talking Browns on Sports4CLE. Jay Williams this morning on ESPN Radio talking about the expectations he has for Deshaun Watson in 2023.
I'm looking at this realistically, and I am an owner of a team that gave him Jimmy Haslam. I gave him $230 million guaranteed. Oh, you can trust and believe I'm expecting you to get back to being a tier 1 quarterback in this league. Mm-hmm. That's what I paid That's what I paid an NFL record-setting contract for, Amber.
Yeah.
And by the way, you've had time now. So, like, the pressure is really on. And look at their first 5 games. Like, 4 out of their first 5 games are at home. It's never easy in the AFC, but, I mean, versus the Bengals, it's going to be your home opener. That's a home opener. Then at Steelers, then Tennessee at home, Ravens at home, San Francisco at home. It's time now, Amber, to see, like, look, Deshaun Watson is a special talent. Last year, like I said, just throw it out the window. This year, it's time to put the pressure and to see if he can raise the level and raise everybody else around him to the level we expect him to do, like he was doing in Houston.
With that, let's welcome in Casey Kinnamon, Dog Pound Daily. Casey, that's fair. You know, the contract ended up being, you know, the guaranteed part. You can make that whatever you want. It's the 7th highest average annual value right now, and that doesn't count Burrow yet, and they'll probably redo another one. So, but yeah, it's time for Deshaun Watson to go play like Deshaun Watson that the Browns thought he was.
Yeah, we're far enough removed now that it's almost like the draft picks are a bigger deal than the contract. You know, the contract is just going to keep going down as far as averages go, just because of the way that everything works in the NFL. But Williams isn't wrong. You know, they made those moves they made to go get a tier 1 quarterback. You don't make that move for a mid-level guy. So the expectation for him is to get back to being one of those upper tier quarterbacks. And they put the pieces in place around him. That should be the expectation. You know, and that schedule he mentioned, there's some good teams on there. You know, you got to play the Bengals. You know, I think the Ravens are going to be up to snuff, and San Francisco, they play well, man, and I think they'll even do so on the road. So the expectation though is to make the playoffs. It can't be anything less than that, and anything less than that should be considered failure.
Well, the other thing is the roster that around him. Now you can say whatever you want to say about DeAndre Hopkins. They had J.J. Watt, but the roster that the Browns have put around him is so much better than the one that the Texans were a playoff team. You know, they didn't make it his rookie year. The next 2 years, they made it on, I think, 11 and 10 games when they were playing 16. Yeah, you should not only expect to be a playoff team, you should expect to win the division with Deshaun Watson. As I'm making that rationale and looking at that, they should win the division with Deshaun Watson.
Yeah, that's what it's been building to this whole time. It's the reason you go and stack these rooms, you know, and their roster's not perfect, but no roster is. There's going to be some flaws and some holes, and you're going to have to go through some injuries you didn't see coming. But overall, if you look at this roster compared to every other roster, not just in the AFC North, not just the AFC, but in the NFL, they're in the upper tier in every positional room, maybe except one or two, you know, and those are positions that have been devalued over time. But yeah, that's got to be the expectation. And that's the weight of expectations now. Is not just for Deshaun Watson, but for this team and for this coaching staff. It's on everybody. I mean, so I'm sure Watson's feeling some added pressure, but that needs to be throughout that entire building.
Well, and you know the alternative is nobody expects you to do well because you don't have the talent. So you don't want that either if you're a head coach or a player.
Yeah, we've been there.
Yeah. Alex Van Pelt, offensive coordinator, talked about what they have seen early in training camp from the young wide receivers with both Amari Cooper and Marquise Goodwin less than 100% and not able to go.
They can do a lot of things. Very skilled receiver, inside, outside, can do stuff out of the backfield. That was impressive to see. For a rookie, I thought Cedric had a really good camp, coming in and learning the system, putting all the pieces together, had some mistakes, but really made some plays on the ball, which was good to see. You know, Dalen Baldwin's Mr. Reliable. He's out there. You can play him in multiple positions. So those young guys got a lot of good reps and did some good stuff.
And the first one he talked about was Elijah Moore. So, you know, you're gonna need that depth.
Yeah, with Amari's absence in particular, it's you know, I don't mean to sound rude about it, but like I don't need to see Amari Cooper at all until September anyway. You know, as long as he's back to practice and getting those reps in. But as far as like these games coming up, that just gives other people, you know, opportunities, younger players. And I'm glad he mentioned Dalen Baldwin. He's had a great camp. Jalen Darden's another one. So those absences have given these younger players reps. And Elijah Moore has made the most of it. I mean, he's just every place you put him, he's been elite, you know, and he's been shown that he's going to be a valuable part of this offense, and that just comes through repetition. And the more the time that Watson gets with these other players, you know, it gives them a deeper well to pull from, because you know when September 10th comes, Amari is going to be Amari, so you really don't need to see him. I am more concerned about the Marquise Goodwin absence. Hopefully he's able to get back to health and contribute to this team, but they definitely need a speed element, and that's something that they need to. I don't know if address is the word, but they need to see it out of other players, because they're going to need, you know, 30 to 40 snaps throughout the year of someone actually stretching the field. And that's something that Goodwin was doing in the spring.
All right, so this is from the Bleacher Report. Expectations for top rookies for the Browns in particular. Cedric Tillman. With Tillman, they say Tillman may eventually become a starter in Cleveland, although that may not happen right at the beginning of his rookie campaign. 6'3", 215-pound receiver, a strong skill set that should only improve over time. It seems like as camp goes on, Casey, he gets better and better and starts making, you know, he keeps popping up in these plays, especially on scramble drills with Deshaun Watson.
Yeah, and I don't think they brought him here to produce this year. I think he was drafted with the future in mind to give them flexibility in case they have to move on from DPJ or Amari Cooper. But I don't know what my expectations are for Tillman this season. You know, I think that they just need him to grow. They need him to expand his route tree and learn how to be a professional and be ready when his name is called upon, because he's an injury away from being needed, you know. But I think if you look at DPJ's rookie season, I think he was targeted 20 times. I think he scored 2 touchdowns. I think you're looking probably a slight uptick from that, looking at a guy who's probably going to see 35 targets, maybe score 3 or 4 touchdowns. He's a big body. And like you pointed out, he's definitely made a good account for himself on those scramble plays, making himself available to Watson, which is something this team desperately needs.
Yeah, the thing that wouldn't be surprising at all is if he becomes a red zone kind of guy with both his skill set and his ability to kind of create and find soft spots. The other one that we'll take a look at, the other third-round pick for the Browns, Siaka Ika, defensive tackle, 6'4", 358 pounds, 22-year-old, could eventually become a force in the center of the Browns D-line. May take some time for that to happen, though. Ika is unlikely to seize a starting spot next to Tomlinson, with others such as Jordan Elliott and Maurice Hurst further up the depth chart. And again, I don't know that they drafted Ika with the thought of him starting. If he produces, there's a spot there for a defensive tackle.
Yeah, he could force their hand. They need somebody in that room to step up. And I wasn't super high on the pick when they made it, but once I found out Schwartz was the one pounding the table, that's all I need to know. If he envisions a role for Ika in his defense, I'm all for it. Let's see it, And I think that he, just like Tillman, he was drafted with the future in mind of being someone, because they keep swinging on these defensive tackles and missing. They need one to hit. And he's been slightly higher than what they have taken in the past. And he also brings an element they don't have. There's no way that dude's under 340 pounds. They don't have someone with his size. So just to supply that and get in people's way would be lifetimes better than what we saw last season.
I had the exact same reaction. Ika wasn't a guy that I was thrilled with, and then when I saw Jim Schwartz, I was like, all right, I trust his opinion on defensive linemen, especially tackles. Casey Kinnamon and I are going to step aside, take one more time out. Other side of the break, we'll hear from Bubba Ventrone as well as Kevin Stefanski about Jim Schwartz. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
The Greater Cleveland Sports Hall of Fame celebrates the star athletes and notable sports figures who were born or have made their home in Greater Cleveland. It tells the story of discipline, commitment, perseverance, sportsmanship, and excellence in achievement. It encourages and inspires those who believe in sport and its direct impact on the well-being of our community. Go to clevelandsportshall.com or follow us on Twitter at GCLE Sports HOF for more details.
We continue talking Browns with Casey Kinnamon from Dog Pound Daily. We've heard from Jim Schwartz, the new defensive coordinator, new special teams coordinator. Bubba Ventrone talked about kicker Cade York, about his progress.
He's done a good job of keeping everything simple, right? There hasn't been a lot of variation in his mechanics. He's not overthinking. There's been a lot of consistency with the operation, the snap and the hold. So that's been a big positive. He's had great results in the spring and then now into training camp. Everything's been positive, really good. I'm excited for him.
And Casey, when you think about Cade York, there was that, it was almost the, you kept hearing perfectionist, and it was just use that really strong leg and make it good. Doesn't have to be perfect, just get it through the uprights. Doesn't have to be dead center.
Yeah, it's good to hear Ventrone say those things, although I don't think he would tell you if he was struggling. But with being a kicker is so much like being a golfer, which is something that York is. York is an adamant golfer, and you need that singular focus, and your mechanics have to be clean. You have to be able to put blinders on and do that same activity over and over, and we don't have to question the kid's leg strength, that's for sure. He's got that. So as long as he's able to keep it together between the ears, he should be okay.
Yeah, and that's what you want to see. You hope he, it was an uneven rookie season, and that happens in the NFL. Kevin Stefanski talked about Jim Schwartz and what he has seen from his defensive coordinator.
He and I see the game very similar. He's very honest. Sometimes, that can be taken as brutal honesty, but I just think he's very authentic in his nature. He's been doing it at a high level. I know from my perspective, I get to see a guy who coaches him hard, but it's fair. He's fair with the guys. He's just going to call it like it is.
Casey, we talked about this. A little bit different personality, which I think is good. And you can say the same thing about Bubba Ventrone. So I like the mix that you're kind of sensing from the head coach and the two coordinators, and really the three coordinators. If you Bill Callahan, you put him in there. It's a very different group, and you need that, I think.
Yeah, and it's good to hear that they're in lockstep, but that is not a prerequisite. Like, when you have a head coach like Stefanski who's so involved with the offense, what he needed was a CEO, head coach of the defense. And that's exactly what he has in Schwartz. You don't need to meddle. You don't need to worry about that side of the ball. You just get him the ingredients he needs to cook, and don't complain if the meal tastes bad one week. Just let him work his magic. He's been doing this for a long time at a very high level. You got a pretty good base level talent on that side of the ball with some elite players at key positions. I think it'll be just fine. I think it's very similar to how you said Bill Callahan. That's the name that I think of when I think of Schwartz. It's someone with a wealth of knowledge that Stefanski can lean on if he needs to for like head coaching advice. But as far as there needs to be a divide there, and you just let Schwartz handle that, and Stefanski keep all of his focus on the offense. And
that's one of the reasons when it was apparent that they weren't going to bring back Joe Woods, I said I wanted a Bill Callahan. And again, this is a guy that he's been a head coach. He's not trying to become a head coach. Same thing with Callahan. And he's really good at being a defensive coordinator.
Yep, that's the separation of duties. We don't need Stefanski worrying about anything other than the offense currently, And if Stefanski has to worry about the defense, we have a whole nother list of problems.
I agree with you. So, Hall of Fame game, and I know you've written an article about this. So, what do you think the three big storylines are for the Browns and Jets game? This is again an article you wrote for Dog Pound Daily.
Well, as it comes down to a key area, like when you're looking at a game like this, you're going to be seeing the bottom 2/3 of the roster. There's not really much to ascertain about the starters, so you kind of have to shift your focus down. And when I look at it, I think you're going to look at the backup running back spot, And in a perfect world, Nick Chubb takes over 80% of the snaps, and we're not really worried about the backup. But, this in a perfect world, and your backup could be a starter in one play. So they have to be confident in Jerome Ford. And I think you're going to see a massive dose of him this preseason. I don't know how much you're going to see of him in this first game. I think you're going to see a lot of Demetric Felton, which is something else that we need to flesh out. And I think he kind of has an advantage here because you might see him play with Dorian Thompson-Robinson, which was his quarterback in college, who leaned heavily on Felton in the passing game, which is exactly what we need to see out of Felton because that's the role he'll be playing for the Browns. So that's one area I need to look at. The second area I want to say is interior offensive line. We don't really know what the pecking order is in the depth chart behind the starters. You got all five starters returning, and you know who the swing tackles are going to be. That's going to be Hudson, and it's going to be DeJuan Jones. Kind of leaves the interior. And we don't also know if they're going to keep 10 offensive linemen or kick that down to 9. We keep hearing they want to keep 7 receivers. Well, that squeeze is going to come somewhere, and it could be the offensive line. You got 2 backup centers in Harris and Weipler. They're not going to keep both. It just doesn't make any sense unless one of those two can give you guard versatility, which might flesh itself out. And these are the kind of games we're going to get to see. And then you got 2 guards in Drew Forbes, who they're high on, and Michael Dunn, who we've seen play in some high leverage situations, who are perfect backups. Well, they might only keep 1. That is a strong possibility. And then you have 2 other backup guards who are starting. They're NFL caliber linemen. It's just going to be a numbers game. So I'll be paying a lot of attention to the interior offensive line. But then it comes down to when you don't have first round picks, you always seem to treat your second and third round picks like they're first rounders. Well, for the Browns, they had 2 third round picks. That's going to be the first guys off the board. We get a chance to actually see them in action. We talked about him earlier, but to see Tillman out there playing with backup quarterback, seeing if he's expanding his route tree and seeing how he making plays on the ball, if he's able to get in the end zone, these are huge steps for him. Ick is the important one, though, because he gets to display his physicality. And that is something that you really don't get to see in practices. you might get to see some in the joint practices, but we won't be privy to those. So this is the action we get to see. Can you be physical at the point of attack? Can you collapse pockets? Can you stop the run? These are huge elements, and this will be our first chance to witness them. And a bonus for both of those players is because of their size, you're not going to have to look for jersey numbers. You're going to know if they're on the field.
And you know what? So no practice tomorrow in training camp. They'll kind of go through a walkthrough and back it off. Then Thursday is game day. So getting there to see the Browns back on the football field. Casey Kinnamon, great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Casey.
Anytime, Dad. You guys have a good one.
Casey Kinnamon, make sure you check him out. Dog Pound Daily, always insightful Browns coverage. That's going to do it for this edition of Sports for CLE. We'll see you back here tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Have a great night, everybody. See you tomorrow at 4 on Sports for CLE.